Prepare to be amazed as two men, legally classified as vintage, compete to recall pop culture nonsense from a time when parents smoked in grocery stores and Ronald McDonald roamed free, judged and scored by artificial intelligence. Chris and Jeff sift through the glorious wreckage of a gleefully neglected childhood, hoping to find meaning. Nice pull, because if we don't remember this crap, you know damn well someone's gonna try and reboot it and make it way worse. Well, we're almost halfway through the 60s, Chris. This is episode number 64. Again, we've said this a million times because I guess because we're getting older. You and I are equally shocked that there's another episode. We're both just as surprised that we're coming back for yet another episode. And again, for those of you that may be tuning in for the first time, this was a joke, right? That Chris and I were like, hey, wouldn't it be funny if we did what everyone's doing, what everyone on the damn planet's doing, and do a podcast about our stupid minutia, our trivia, and it would be a joke for our high school friends who have always said, you guys, you know so much about this shit. Why don't you do a podcast?
Exactly. It's like they were like, do something. I don't even think this was a podcast. They're like, you guys should do something with that energy because, let's face it, they're not as creative as we are, right? So it was just like, and they know who they are. So, yeah. So I think, yes, once again, here we are at 64.
Yeah. Yep.
All I can ask is, and this is a little bit before the stuff that we usually talk about, but to our listeners, will you still need me? Will you still feed me?
Nice.
So to speak,
Wow.
for when we're 64, because here we are at episode 64. And we're just getting warmed up, right? I think that's an Al Pacino reference. But
let's talk about one thing that Chris just did. He was not happy in the last episode when he discovered that he did not win the nice poll contest and get the highest score.
No.
So what did he do? Out of the damn gate, he pulls in a Beatles reference. He's getting primed already.
Oh, yeah.
He's not going to mess around, guys. This is going to be chock full of poll after poll after poll. He is not playing around. But Chris, going back to that, and I don't expect any points for this. I'm just going to say how funny it is. Yellow Submarine is one of my favorite movies of all time. I know that's a weird thing to say, but it really is. I just love that movie. And when they're talking about will you still need me and love me and feed me when I'm 64, they are showing themselves with long white beards as if they are 250 years old. Back then, if you were 64, man, that is it, buddy. You may as well be Rip Van effing Winkle. You may as well be Methuselah, right? This is ancient shit, right? And we've talked about this many times, right? Because people back then, when they turned 40, they already looked like they were 64. I don't know, hard living, secondhand smoke, drinking like a fish, lots of stress. You tell me. But isn't that funny that to them, 64 was like, oh my God, just find a plot and lay down and have them put that beautiful dirt over your face.
Well, I give them a little bit of credit because I think when they wrote that, they were probably 24, right? So I mean, so at that point, who's thinking when we were trying, it's like 40 years from now, and then yes, they're picturing themselves. They might as well be like parting the Red Sea, got that whole Charlton Heston thing going on in the 10 in the 10 Commandments and all that.
Yeah.
But yeah, they might as well. Of course, I think tragically, two of the Beatles didn't make it to 64 ultimately.
Yeah.
So that's
true,
50% of them. But yeah, they might as well, they were talking about, they might as well, had food pills and flying cars when they were 64. Yeah. So that's great. And that's great. The Yellow Submarine, I think, very underrated. Although the one thing I have to just, before we get into scoring, I was disappointed years later when I found out that actually wasn't the Beatles doing the voices.
Yeah,
that
right.
was like, oh man, that kind of sucked,
Here's the weird thing about that. You nailed it, man. And for those of you, again, listening in here, Yeah, the Yellow Submarine was not their voices. So first of all, whoever was doing those voices, I mean, that's an Academy Award level
Mhm.
impression of those guys. I mean, it is dead on accurate for each one. Number
Mhm.
2, that entire project was put together from inception to completion within like a year and a half. They had this like super fast timeline. Imagine back in the day in the 60s trying to do an animated feature in like 18 months and putting a story together. And the Beatles didn't even think it was going to be anything. So
Mhm.
they didn't really have much involvement at all.
Ah,
So these
makes
guys, I
sense.
mean, it's just the insane. It's insane how they did such a good job. And then later on, when the Beatles started to see the finished product, they're like, oh my God, this is effing awesome. And they
Mhm.
came in later at the end of that film to do a cameo and sing 1, 2, 3, 4.
Oh,
Can
can I
I have a
have a little
little
more?
more? 5, 6, 7, 8, 9,
And
10. I
I
love
love
you.
you.
Dong, 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 A.
Nice.
Okay. So super, super cool, great movie. But again, their vision, just like The Who, right? I hope I die before I get old. That was the whole thing, like old. Oh my God, old, right? In your 40s. Holy shit,
Oh,
60s
Jesus.
again. Oh
Yeah.
my God. So
Brutal.
speaking of 64, I guess it's that time, Chris. I'm
Mhm.
gonna haul butt through the score
Got
from
it.
the last episode just to recap what happened, and then we'll move on to the fun topic for this
Mhm.
episode. So, again, anybody that ever wants to see the score and the
Mhm.
breakdown of who had the best poll, who had the most obscure references, what each reference was, all you got to do is go to nicepollpod.com,
Mhm.
click on score, and you can rifle through all of the minutia, the entire breakdown, and challenge us, by the way. Hey, Chris didn't say that. What the hell are you talking about? That's not what Buddy Epstein did on that day in his car, allegedly. What am I talking about? I don't
Buddy
know.
Epstein.
I, wait, what's Buddy Epstein? Who
Are
is
you
that?
saying Buddy Epson?
I
Did he
was.
convert
I
or
was.
something
I
like that?
was. Hey, Buddy Epstein wasn't Jewish. Our buddy Epson wasn't Jewish. Dude, I don't know. Do you know what I think it is? I think I've been seeing the word Epstein in the news quite a bit. And so I think I dragged poor buddy Epson, who never did anything wrong, probably the sweetest guy in the world, into a horrible scandal. My apologies to Buddy Epson.
At the same time, if there were the Epson files, they probably would be something you and I would be interested in, right? We would probably
The
wanna
Epson files would just be like, if it was the Epson files, it would just be the conspiracy of him trying out for and getting the part as the Tin Woodsman in Wizard of Oz,
right.
but he's allergic to the silver makeup, and they have to pull him out of the movie and
Mhm.
hire, right?
Right.
So,
Was
that
it
could be a conspiracy right there. Who tainted the silver makeup to knock Betty? Now I'm on Betty. Who's Betty?
I think you need to quit while
Chris,
you're
is there a
ahead.
Betty Epson? Or no, there's no Betty Epson, is there? No,
There's gotta
that's
be a
not
Betty
correct.
Ep there's one of
Is
the
there a Betty
2.
Epstein? Is there a Betty Epstein?
Chance. I think there's a
Can we
chance there's one or the other.
Okay.
Um,
All
uh,
right. Anyway,
yeah. Okay.
I guess I swear I'm not trying to, pull a bunch of polls here. It just
Right.
is where my brain went.
Okay.
So episode 64, let's take a look. Now, again, many times in these episodes, Chris, we talk about topics that we've already discussed. Those
Mhm.
don't count. We can't score those again.
Damn it.
But we did have Billy Mooney from Lost in Space as a guest on the show, and he was our first musical guest. He played the acoustic guitar for us. That was so much fun.
Really
We
cool.
talked about the fact that back in the day, he had that novelty song, Fish Heads.
Mhm.
We talked about the fact that in an old episode of Lost in Space, he played the classic Beach Boys song, Sloop John B, on his guitar, and is a really good singer. We talked about the fact that Brian Wilson, God bless his heart, one of the geniuses of music, recently passed away. We talked about Cats in the Cradle, right? Our
Mhm.
Father's Day episode. We've
Mhm.
talked about that many times before,
Sure.
but I like to bring out heartache and sadness as many times as I can and make us all want to slit our wrists and drive off a cliff because we regret our relationship with our kids.
Easy,
I think that's a
easy.
good thing to constantly drag out. And
Always.
then we talked about a pretty obvious topic, right? Which was Mike Brady's architectural plans for the house, and somehow he only gave 6 kids 1 bathroom. we've mentioned that before, but I think it is a poignant thing to mention. Wouldn't you
Mhm.
say, Chris?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Well, that gets rid of the general stuff that we talked about, but let's get into my favorite guy, right? This guy, Jeff.
Mhm.
Um, I mentioned the fact that Veruca Salt in Willy Wonka, I talked about his dad, right?
Mhm.
The actor who also appeared in so many other things, including that Mike and the Mechanics song, right?
Mhm.
That Chris pulled. So I pulled a poll off of your poll, Chris. I
Double
talked
pull.
about the Three Musketeers, and that was just a great movie back in 1973, but don't watch it.
Mhm.
Don't go back and rewatch it. The pacing is horrible, guys. You'll be so bored. But back in the day, that was an amazing movie.
Mhm.
I did some British slang idioms on all these detective shows where the British have all these weird, things that they say. I didn't
Mhm.
get many points for it. In fact, it was rated as not very obscure. All right, F
Mhm.
you, AI. Uh, I did talk about Michael Landon. That is not a good poll in terms of being obscure, but I did add a weird aspect to it, which is I didn't like his portrayal on Little House on the Prairie. He depressed me, and
Mhm.
the amount of hate mail that I'm expecting on that. And then I talked about Tom Bradford
Mhm.
being just total white bread and being so boring. Who is that, Chris? Who is Tom Bradford?
He's
Enlighten us.
well, he was the head of the family. He was the dad in Eight is Enough, played by the one and only Dick Van Patten. So,
Boring, boring, boring was my point. I
yes.
mentioned something that's a little bit obvious, but um, uh, people that have a very high opinion of themselves despite their stature, like Rob
Mhm.
Schneider, he's on the list. Always casting super smoking hot supermodels in every movie that he used to be in the day, as if somehow those would ever be his wife. Love that. Um, I talked about the fact that if I had a choice for a TV dad, it would have been Dick Van Dyke. Got some points there. I brought up some Supertramp lyrics, for God's sake. And then Chris, you and I started singing Supertramp for a minute or two. When I was young, it seemed that life was so blah blah blah.
Right, right.
And the last one I got a point for, Chris, and I got some good points here, was mentioning the fact that in Lost in Space, the show that Billy Mooney starred in as Will Robinson, Dr. Smith was the whole reason that they were lost in space because
Mhm.
the extra weight
Right.
of his body when he snuck on board the Jupiter
Stowaway. Stowaway.
stowaway created a problem where their ship crashed into an asteroid belt instead of avoiding it. By the way, if your spaceship is so fragile, how much do you think Dr. Smith weighs? 98 pounds? 110?
Yeah.
Soaking wet
Buck
with
30.
sand in his pockets?
Yeah, yeah.
That is gonna cause you to go careening into an asteroid belt? Back to the
Well
writer's
well,
room,
because
folks.
also because also that would mean on your trip, you couldn't really pick stuff up, right? You couldn't like, "Oh, we wanna take that back with us," or you know what I mean? It's just like it's like it's the equivalent of, like, taking a vacation going, "Oh, there's no room in the car for that." You know what I mean? It's like it's
Chris, I never thought of that. That is so true. You're not gonna believe it. We found a power source that we can reverse engineer and solve all of Earth's energy
right.
problems. How much does it weigh?
Well, we have to leave Penny behind or something, you know?
That's right. That's right. Yeah. Yeah. How's Penny been doing lately? Yeah. Is she getting sick? Yeah.
Or you rescued somebody. It's like, "You know what? We'd really like to take you back with us, but you're gonna have to stay here and starve."
Amelia Earhart.
Was not very good planning. Yes, DB
That's where she
we
was.
found DB Cooper, but we couldn't capture him and bring him back because he weighed too much. So that's an excellent point. That was not a very they didn't think that out. There's no extra payload, I guess. I don't know.
That does make absolutely no sense, but whatever. Back to the writer's room. Let's go to Chris's polls. We mentioned a lot of the music that has to do with fathers and sons for the Father's Day episode. Chris, you did the Cat Stevens song "Father and Son."
Mhm.
You also brought up not so much. Oh, and the Living Years, excuse me, which is another great one. Got some good
Mhm.
points for that. Um, but along the lines of music, just sort of randomly, you were talking about "All I Need Is a Miracle" by Mike and the Mechanics. That's an obscure poll for sure. You got some good points there,
Uh,
or some points there anyway. Willie Ames, you referenced the fact that he actually voiced one of the characters
mhm.
in "Wait Till Your Father Gets Home." Now, Chris, I brought up "Wait Till Your Father Gets Home."
Mhm.
whatever, because I thought that Tom Bosley's character on that was kind of boring. But
Uh-huh.
you're the one that named him as Harry Boyle, and that's what got some points. I'm not kidding, dude. That
Okay.
was a nice pull, as
Okay.
it says here. That's pretty rare, and that
Uh,
was 108,000 points. And honestly, Chris, that really tipped the scales here.
2 things. Is there a more '70s dad name than Harry Boyle? And then number 1. Number 2, is there a more disgusting name than Harry Boyle, as far as, like, that so props to again, we always bring up those writers' rooms, so
Yeah,
somebody was, working extra hard on Harry Boyle, you know?
yeah. It makes me think of the detective sergeant on Hawaii Five-O, Terry Pustule.
I guess Harry Dix was canceled by the network or something like that,
No, no,
anyway,
no. You're
Harry
thinking of the
Butts.
Ron Jeremy film.
Yeah.
Yeah. Um,
Okay,
so,
Harry Butts. Uh,
moving on,
mhm,
you had a really great poll here worth 44,000 points, talking about Fred Rutherford, which is presumably a dad, but just a really hilarious character actor that
mhm.
appeared on the Dick Van Dyke Show and Bewitched. Yeah.
No.
No,
No, he was on Leave It to Beaver. He was Fred Rutherford on Leave
sorry.
It to Beaver, and he was Mel Cooley on the Dick Van Dyke Show, like the producer that they all like to just torment. He was like Ellen Brady's yes man or something like that, so, yeah. And he
Exactly.
was bald.
Perfect.
He was bald, so they were, like, cranking
Yeah.
out the bald jokes in '62. So,
Yeah. Exactly. I would be such a weird anomaly back then because I am basically bald.
uh
And I don't quite think that I look like I'm 80, but
No.
so I don't know where I would fall in terms of casting in a
Sure.
movie. But you also mentioned that Buddy, speaking of Buddy, not
Mhm.
Buddy Epstein, right? Or Buddy Epson, but the character Buddy
Buddy
Sorrell
Sorrell. Maury
yeah,
Amsterdam. Yeah.
yeah, Maury Amsterdam. By the way, another classic old name, Maury. My God, can you have a more
Right.
1940s to 50s name than
No.
Maury?
No.
Yeah, it's just so great.
Right.
You mentioned that his wife's name was Pickles. That was another nice poll, dude.
Mhm.
That was 86,000 points. So you're really kind of kicking my ass here.
Pickles points.
You also speculated that there was more to the Buddy and Sally relationship than met the eye. I kind of don't want to think about it,
It's a family
honestly.
show. Yeah, we should stay
Yeah,
away from that. Yeah.
but I do believe that that would have been a great spinoff, right? Is the
Mhm,
Buddy and Sally story, and I would call, because it's a love triangle, I would
mhm.
call that In a Pickle. No,
Ooh,
yeah,
ooh.
because his wife, you see, is named Pickles. So then finally, and this was a almost a throwaway reference,
Uh-huh.
9,000 points, not very obscure, but you did make the excellent point that Adam Sandler is no different than Rich
R
Schneider. He
right,
also casts
right.
smoking hot
Rob
women
Schneider.
as his
Yeah,
love interest. Rob Schneider.
right.
Man, I'm off on the names. I'm getting negative points today. What did I say? Rich Schneider? All right, Chris. So, the
Mhm.
anticipation is building. I think I know where this is headed, but let's take a look at the final score with AI, and let's take a look at who won episode 63 of Nice Poll. I did know that was going to happen.
Yeah.
I know that you can kind of sense it when it's going to happen. I could sense that that one was a runaway. Chris, do you want to read off those scores for the folks at home that might not be watching?
Jeff with a very impressive 250,940. Not enough to beat my 380,725. Again, looks like a blowout, but when you come up with Pickles Sorrel, I think that was really the difference almost. It's much closer without Pickles. Much closer without Pickles. That's they're going to be without Pickles. Will be on at Coachella day 3. Um, no, it was
No,
good.
no, Chris, you were almost there. And who's
What?
opening for them?
Uh,
Harry's
he's more
Boyle.
God. This is we're gonna have to track
Um,
we're gonna have to track this lineup.
Great job, by the way.
Well, thank you, but I was kind of
Yeah,
banging away on my Texas Instruments calculator right now. I kind of was trying to keep along, but I thought I was in good shape. So, but I'll take it. I'll take it. So,
I like that. I like the fact that even your analogy has a poll in it. So well done. Your Texas Instruments calculator. Nice.
Those were
That's
the
the one that
best,
has all
man.
the things on it that we thought we learned in geometry and trigonometry and algebra, but we really didn't. Cosines and all that shit. You never see that on a calculator nowadays, right? The Texas Instrument calculator was incredible compared to what,
Well, okay,
yeah.
well, but I have to throw in, like, I think I may have mentioned my dad bought one of those, like, in '73, because my dad was always, like, the early adopter of that crap, and all it could do was, like, your add, subtract, multiply, and divide. It was, like, the size of, like, 2/3 of a brick. It weighed about 12 pounds, and it was like, "Hey, don't touch that." It was, like, the greatest thing ever. You know what I mean?
Wait, wait, Chris, can you do the impression one more time?
Don't touch that. You know what I mean? Because it was, like, so valuable, like, we really needed that around the house, but, man, I wish I had it now. I wish that would be, like, an artifact, so
And any time that on the rare occasion that a calculation needed to occur, your dad was like, did he call a family meeting and have everybody gather around? Everybody here has
yeah.
been wondering
Uh,
how many eggs we've consumed over the last 3.5 months. Now, let's finally put an end to this. Hold on, everybody.
okay, but well, you know what?
12, shut up, times 7 times
84, Dad, 84. No, don't talk. No.
Chris, sit back down. This is part of you. You need to hear this as well.
You know no, but what my dad would do, though, that was like, um, he would, like, take, like, a magic marker and, like, write, like, let's say you had a bottle of shampoo or, like, maybe some, I don't know, Aunt Jemima's syrup. He would, like, write the date on it that, like, we opened it. So then he could, like, say, "We're out of syrup. Who's been eating all this syrup? We've only had this syrup for, 22 days."
I
He
love the
was
fact that,
obsessed with the details of that.
uh, and that must have come from at least 2 or 3 instances where he's like, I would love so much to hammer these mother effers about how quickly we went through this. But
Uh-huh,
alas, I
uh-huh.
don't actually have the
Right,
data.
right.
As God is my witness, from here on out, I am
Uh-huh,
going to document it. And by God, when
uh-huh.
I say we've only had it for 3 days, nobody can argue.
Right.
Because, Chris, if you actually take a pen and write on there, that is proof.
It
That will
is.
hold up in a court of law. That is forensic right there.
Mhm. Yeah, well,
Yeah.
because and we knew the code. Nobody else did. Someone would, like, at our house, like, "Yeah, why does it say 6/11 on the back of the syrup?" "Oh, because we opened that on June 11th," and
I can understand those, but the salt packets, that seems,
a
Chris,
little
that seems
extreme.
excessive.
Yeah,
That seems
yeah.
excessive. Yeah. Well, thanks everybody. We're out of
Mhm.
time. I hope you enjoyed this episode. Look,
Till next time.
this is what the episode's all about, is going on tangents
Yeah,
and getting off
right,
on anyway,
right.
congratulations, Chris. That
Thank
was
you.
really cool. What I'm gonna do for everybody that cares, I don't know how many
Mhm.
people do, but I'm gonna do this anyway, is on the Nice Poll website, again, when you go to Nice Poll Pod and you go to scores, it shows a little picture of a scoreboard. Almost looks like a baseball type of a scoreboard. I'm gonna actually go back and I'm going to figure out how many I won versus how many that you won. And we're going to have a real scoreboard up there, Chris, so people can actually
Ooh,
see
ooh.
who's winning the war versus the battles. And I think, Chris, that will raise the stress level in your mind and maybe either get you very happy or even more pissed off
Oh,
and
right.
anxious. One of
It's
the two.
that's going to change the tone of the, but no, that's
Yes.
fine. I welcome the challenge. Okay, so we passed Father's Day. We talked a lot about it, being the selfish dads that we are. Which means, right, which once to me, what's so Father's Day and then cusp of 4th of July, right? So summer has kicked off, right? Weather's, Southern California, we're getting really great. It's warming up, although I know a little more inland, it's always been that way. So it got to, again, it was just like I get the common complaints as, kids. Now, again, we've talked a lot about, it's like your sons are both grown. I still have a 12-year-old and have to, with my older and still in college. And it's in the sense of, like, the boredom, what am I going to do with summer? The question is, like, having to manage. And I know you did this a little bit. Again, it's been a few
Mhm.
years since you had to do that, but it really dawned on me as far as parents and as parents, even if you became a dad 15 years ago, or even if you became a parent 20 years ago or whatever, or you were dealing with this stuff, the expectation that the parents have to manage their kids' summer, where who managed our summer when we were kids? Us, right? And so it got me thinking. It's just like, what the hell happened? You know what I mean? Because it's in the sense, it's like I was a kid. Let's say I was 12. Yeah, perfect example. When I was 12 years old, and whenever I woke up and rolled out of bed on a let's say Tuesday morning in June, well, what am I going to do today? Right? It was pretty much up to my friends who, and again, we've talked about this before, who I couldn't text, I could call on the landline, and we did call each other, right? Or
Mm-hmm.
we did just decide to jump on our bikes and figure out what we were going to do, or somebody came to somebody else's house, or as you mentioned before, the bat signal that when you happen to see 2 or 3 bikes outside of somebody's house, that's where I'm going to
Oh,
go.
yeah. Yep.
But that was it. That was our world. And our parents had no way of tracking us. Our parents had no way of checking in. Basically our one sort of goal for the day from our parents was to not die, right? That was our directive, be home by a certain time. And we were totally and completely fine with that, right?
Yep.
That was freedom. That was a certain amount of that certain adventure, later turned into driving off of cliffs and jumping into swimming pools on fire, as we referenced past episodes. But there was just
Yeah.
something to it that was almost like that sort of, I don't want to say like Tom Sawyer-ish kind of thing, but like, yeah, what are we going to do today? Where now completely planned, sort of almost managed, paid for, and almost scripted to the point of, man, your kid better have their summer all laid out for them. Thoughts on that? What the hell happened? Why did that change?
First of all, Chris, with any event that is coming up, like a movie, for instance, you
Mhm.
have to get people built up in terms of their interest. You need to do hype. You need to
Okay.
market it. You need to have trailers. You
Uh,
need to really come up with this idea that, in 4 days, the epic event, dot, dot,
right.
dot, in a
Uh-huh.
world
In a word.
of class and homework and
Mhm.
drudgery, 2.5 months of freedom awaits if we can only get there, right? So let's talk for just one quick moment about the fact that when we were kids growing up in the 70s, back in the day when we cared about school being let out, and I guess in the 80s too, the anticipation of
Oh god,
summer
yeah.
finally happening was so huge,
Mhm.
right? And just the imagined, again, drudgery
Yeah.
and oppression that we felt of
Uh-huh.
having to report to that damn bungalow or that classroom every single day was
Mhm.
so overwhelming. And the closer we got to summer, man, kids started talking about their plans. You know, most of them were, I'm going to be going down here and doing this. I'm going to be checking out this. We're going to go see this movie. So and so is going to have a party at his house. Everybody's got to go. If you're not invited, you're nobody. That was always fun.
Mhm.
And or the crazy kids that you couldn't even fathom, which were, we're going to France or we're going to Italy. And you're like, I'm sorry, what?
Yeah.
For me, those kids were aliens. I'm like, I'm sorry, you're going out of the fucking country? So I envied them, but they're not even part of my world. But Chris, remember what it was like when you finally made it to that last day of school and everyone is just looking at that clock. And you always had 2 or 3 teachers that understood it and they were awesome. And it was kind of a free day to do whatever and have a
Mhm.
discussion or talk amongst yourselves. And you always had the dick teacher that was like, and today's the day that the final exam is due. And if you don't pass today, you
Right.
may be involved in summer school,
Oh,
and
right.
those are the kinds of people that if they were alive back in the 40s, would have definitely been running a prison camp, like for sure, like 100% for sure. And given the opportunity, they would ultimately evolve into the bind, torture, kill serial killer, right? These people
Mhm.
just were
Ooh,
crazy in the
nice pick.
head.
Right.
But we finally did it. And Chris, when that bell rang and we were all just swarming out of that school and heading off in different directions. And you're looking at all your classmates. And by the way, let me know if you felt the same way, Chris. Anybody that you had problems with, that guy's normally my bully. That person I don't really like. I'm not sure if that girl likes me. Any of that, it all disappeared. Everybody, when they left school that day, was all high-fiving. We're all on the same page. Now we're out of there, motherfuckers. Let's go have some fun.
It was like it was like being pardoned, right? Everybody was like, clean
Totally.
slate,
Right.
everything is just gonna be new and different. But you're right. It was just like this giant relief. And it was like school was out, and that's all that mattered, right? That was all you cared about. You had no idea what was gonna happen the next week or the next week after that or the week after that, and you didn't care. You were just happy to not be in school. Whereas now, it's
Yeah.
like those kids have that expectation of what camp and, what activities. Who invented the play date? Where did we get into a time of our life where playing, the act of playing, was not only planned and organized and scheduled, it also had a name for it, a play date, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
What? I can imagine how if my family had my mom or dad had set something up for me, I'd be appalled,
Yeah.
right?
I think the difference is we thought of ourselves very differently back in the 70s. Nowadays, it's like you've left prison and you went out to the yard for your scheduled sunshine and volleyball. But when we were kids, we were always looking to escape,
Uh-huh.
right? We were always feeling like prisoners if you cooped us up for more than 10 minutes. And so when we got outside, for instance,
Mhm.
bye, see you effing later. I may or may not return to this family. I don't even know. If you were to quiz me right now and ask me if I'm definitely coming back, I don't know. Do I have anything against you guys as a family? Not really. Thanks for the macaroni and cheese. It's been a pretty good life, but I can't fucking tell you. Who knows who I'm going to meet out there
Mhm.
later?
Mhm.
Whereas kids today are like, now what's happening next? Yeah,
Mhm.
explain to me where my next fun is coming from, as my brother Greg would say, right?
Mhm.
Um, and it's all just like you said, scheduled out, and I'm bored. Bored? Are you joking? When
Mhm.
you can walk outside and there's like a stick and a rock? Do you know how much fun you can have with a fucking stick and a rock? A lot.
Mhm.
It's the sky's the limit. Anyway, yeah, no, I totally get it, man. Play dates are so funny to me that you both, and part of that, Chris, is we would just get on our bikes and or ride anywhere we
Mhm.
wanted to, or skateboards, or just get on your feet, right?
Mhm.
So to speak, these things at the bottom of your ankles, and just start to walk around. Whereas nowadays, kids are like, "Hey, my friend happens to live 15 miles from here. What are they going to do?" It's like an 8-year-old is going to what, make a 15-mile trek. In the 1970s, he would have found a way. He would have hitchhiked. He would have joined a gang. He would have just got, but nowadays that's not cool,
You
right?
woulda got on a bus, you would had to transfer 2 times,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And
Grow
and
up,
and you would have
fucker.
figured
Find a
out.
way to earn money. I don't care if you're in second grade. Get a bus ticket and go find your friend in Arizona and have a good time.
Maybe today one of my friends is gonna come over, and we're just gonna sit and watch The Twilight Zone because it's on at 12, and it's on at 12:30, and then we're gonna go play some wiffle ball or something like that, hop on our bikes. Maybe we'll go to family if we're feeling adventuresome, maybe we'll go to Family Fun Center or something like that. But
Ooh.
again, right?
Oh.
Well, hey, go to 7-Eleven, check out the, new comic books or whatever, something, right?
We didn't have microaggressions back then. We didn't quantify the shit that happened to us. I'm being microaggressed.
Mhm,
And the lessons you learned just came hard and fast. Oh, if I
mhm,
punch that guy in the face, he'll stop doing that. Huh. That's one method. Okay.
mhm,
Oh, if I say that enough, I'll get punched in the face, Jeff, my
mhm,
life. It took me
mhm.
17 of those to figure it out. Or, hey, my dad was right. If you put enough dirt on it, it will stop bleeding. Right? That's another lesson that you learn.
Right.
I'm not saying it's the best thing
Yes.
to do, but it does stop the bleeding. But yeah, and then a camp. Good point, Chris. Like if you went to summer school, I mean, come on, man,
Ugh.
that's the worst thing you could ever do to a kid. There's no way you're going to have fun in summer school. But um, there was a thing that didn't take place in the summer, as I recall, but there was a camp that we all loved, right? At least I did, a 6th grade camp. And do you remember
Mhm.
what time of the year did that happen roughly, Chris? I'm sure you
I
remember,
wanna
right?
say that was, like, in the fall, wasn't it? When it was starting to get
Probably.
cold,
Okay.
yeah.
Yeah, yeah, good point. Yeah, I think it was right before we got into Thanksgiving or around that time,
Mhm.
right?
Yeah.
But again, side note, nothing to do with summer, but that was the one type of camp that
It's
I
the only
loved,
camp
that
I
I
ever went
totally
to.
got behind. Oh, yeah,
Right,
and
right.
it was just at first you're apprehensive, you're not sure what to expect, is this gonna
Mhm.
suck? And then after the 1st or 2nd day, this is the greatest thing ever, right? Just the going out in the woods and meeting new people, and then, of course, if you're our age and you're a guy, you're like, "Oh my god, that girl at that school that's also here is super cute, and how can I
Mhm.
find a way to talk to her, even though right now I have to learn how to sand down this stick and make it look good?" Oh my god, and then the ghost stories at nighttime, and
Right.
you almost felt it felt to me a lot like Hogan's Heroes. That's a weird analogy to make, I
A
know,
prison camp?
because well, no, but I know it's a very strange analogy, and maybe disrespectful because that was technically a horrible prison camp for the worst situation in history. But as a kid that loved Hogan's Heroes, the idea of sleeping in bunk beds and I have to
Mhm.
be here and I'm kind of out in the boondocks in the wilderness and I'm trying to create relationships with other people to get things that I want, like maybe sneaking in an extra snack or finding a way to go talk to them if I can get around the guard, right?
Mhm.
Or get an extra helping of tapioca if I can somehow trick the lunch lady at the camp. For me, the whole thing was I was Colonel Hogan, right? And my buddies, and we're all trying to just make do in this imaginary oppressive situation out in the
Uh-huh.
middle of nowhere. I don't know. That's how my brain works. Weird.
Yeah, you're almost in, like, a barracks, right? And they call them dens and stuff like that, and you had the bunk beds. I don't not a camper. Like, I don't know about you, I've never thought and did you ever join the Boy Scouts or the Cub Scouts or anything like that? That was did you? See,
I
that
was
was
Chris. I'm telling you, man.
were you a
Uh,
Weeblo?
Yes. If it had been there is a picture that I will, show
Ooh.
everybody in this
Ooh.
episode of me. In fact, Chris, because of the magical world of editing,
Mhm.
let me go ahead and just cue this up. Let me show you a picture of me, and Chris will have to pretend that he's really looking at it. No, but let me show the audience a picture of me
Okay.
as a Cub Scout. And Chris, take a look at this photo. As you can see, I am saluting, and that is the Cub Scout salute. I am wearing proudly my Cub Scout uniform. I have the Oliver from the Brady Bunch haircut, right?
Nice.
I got the
Robbie
bowl cut,
wrist. Robbie wrist. Yeah, you got it.
and I literally said to my mom when we went to Sears, which is the place where you would go to purchase your uniform.
Yeah, they had some sort of
I
deal going on there. Yeah.
don't ask me why, Chris. I said to her, "This is the greatest day of my life." There was something about
Really?
dressing up in a uniform and doing the salute and all that. Chris, I would have been the most easy recruit for the army back in the day. I don't
Or the
know
Hitler
what
Youth, something like that.
well, it does kinda look like that.
It
I mean, it's
does.
not too far from that, quite frankly, right?
You
And
know,
by the way, I would have definitely not been taken aside, right? There's nobody that looks more pasty and Aryan than me, and my last name is Phil, and in Germany, it's pronounced Till. I would have
oh,
been the poster child
you would have been like the
for the Aryan youth, yes.
oh my god.
So impressionable, so full of hope and promise, but I don't know, man. I could not have been more convinced that this was amazing. And so I did. I went through Cub Scouts and I went through Weeblos and all that stuff. And I had a good time. I loved it. Boy Scouts, it became arduous. Oh, now I
Uh-huh.
have to deliver. Now shit
Mhm,
goes down. And now we're going to have to go on these long camping trips and I got to do shit. I
mhm.
wasn't into that, Chris. It was, for me, it was more about wearing the uniform and being social and having fun with my friends. Yeah.
Got it, got it. Yeah, that was I that just wasn't for me, and I think I kinda saw and because I think my brother did a little bit of Cub Scout stuff, and then I heard my parents complain about some of the obligations and the merit badges and and the soapbox derby and all that stuff. And so
Oh,
then
yeah.
I was just like, yeah, I don't think so. I kind of managed to opt out, and I don't think they really pushed me to that. I do definitely remember, for whatever reason, that big display at Sears, like right in between, like, the Toughskins and the Keds displays is just like there. That was like your outlet for scouting.
As you can see again from that photo of me doing this, I didn't think too hard about what was gonna happen next. I was
Mhm.
sort of a goldfish. It wasn't so much the outdoors that drew me in as if I was a fan of camping. What I was a fan of was, tell me that I'm doing something today that I've never done before that could have the promise of adventure. And it
Mhm.
really wouldn't have mattered if it was out in the woods or near a lake. If you tell me that I'm now in a new scenario, and again, in my brain, I can act out episodes of television shows, but I'm living it in my mind, I'm
Mhm.
in. You could almost tell me anything, right? We're going to visit a prison today. Really? Tell me more about this prison. That's what I would
Uh-huh.
be thinking in my mind, right?
Uh-huh.
I don't know. That's almost a sociopathic. It's like, I don't know. I didn't have good defense mechanisms back then, Chris. I didn't think things through. I wasn't much of a thinker per se.
Like I said, the unknown, that was the part that, to me, was the highlight of the summer, is 'ca I didn't c you know what I mean? We didn't really care if we were bored, and again, I would just get another get yelled at if you told your parents you were bored. It's the last thing you were gonna do, because then you'd end up with, well, then you need to go clean out the garage or something like that. It's like, "Oh, no, I'm not that bored," right?
Yeah, but for us, boredom would come at a very high level. A kid nowadays would be bored because they're just sitting around and kind of rotting in bed.
Mhm.
For us, it would be like you've already scaled the telephone pole and you're on
Mhm.
top of it
Mhm.
and you're touching wires and transformers with nothing but a bathing suit on during a rainstorm, and you're thinking to yourself,
Mhm.
I'm bored. I wish I could
Mhm.
do something else, right? That's a different version of bored. In
Mhm.
other words, what it took for us to be bored back in the day was was a lot greater than what it
Mhm.
takes for kids today that anything makes them bored.
How okay, then again, as I look through again, summer is still unfolding. It'll be gone before you know it. But what's the one thing, again, the great unknown versus the planned and the activities and the vacations?
The only ones that really pop into my mind, both have to do with a girl that I liked back then, and those are really great memories of outside of school, and you end up, during your summer vacation in some location that's extremely random. The one that I remember for sure was in Pacific Beach. To your point, if nobody was going to drop you off, you would take a bus and it would take, right, Chris, like 2 hours, two and a half
Mhm. Yeah,
hours to get to
it was a
Pacific.
hike. Yeah.
It was arduous, yeah, and you'd have to transfer a bunch of times, and I get there, and then at some point, we all go to Jack in the Box, which is right there next to the sand, just about
Mhm.
2 blocks away, and
Across
I'm
from roller
waiting in line
coaster.
at
Yeah.
Jack in the Box, but as a kid, yeah, you've got a roller coaster on the beach
Mhm.
over here, you've got the sand and the water, you're so far from home, you're on your own, the sky's the limit, it's the summertime, you couldn't possibly feel better, and then at Jack in the Box, I run into a girl that I had a total crush on in junior high school, and
Ooh.
she, typical situation, moved away,
Mhm.
which happens all the time. And Chris, you and I laugh about this a lot, right? Because moving away back then might have meant they moved 5 miles in one direction, but for us, that might, they're gone. They're gone, Chris.
Mhm.
They may as well be in South America. They're gone. And to me, there was just no better feeling, especially in the summertime, running into someone that you had a crush on in a totally weird environment where you felt like, or at least I did, I can now be a totally different person. Whatever Jeff Thill
Uh-huh.
was like back at Pershing Junior High School in 7th grade. This was now a few years later, and I can be anyone I want. I can make up anything. I can be whatever character I want to be, and you just get all this new confidence.
Mhm.
And I had just an awesome conversation with her, and for the whole rest of the day, we hung out at the beach, just having a great time and all the stuff that goes with it. And I guess to me, that's like the heart of a childhood, and just the coolest thing that's a surprise that could ever happen. And again, it just really kind of makes you think, yeah, who am I actually? couldn't I just be the confident guy that's not the weirdo from 7th grade? I could. She doesn't know any better. Yeah. Yeah, that's who I am.
Wow, summer's here. Summer's here, the memories are coming back, whether you're, camping, not camping. I so impressed by your scouting career. Had no idea that and what could have been. I mean, you could have been and who knows, maybe you could have been a completely different path. Maybe you could have been a Navy SEAL or a senator or something like that. But yeah, summer camps, Boy Scout camps, uh, just being able to having no camp. It was just no plans. I'm sorry, I like our ways better. I don't mean to be that guy. I don't mean to get off
Yeah,
my
yeah.
line. We don't need to be Stadler and Waldorf here complaining about these kids, but, wow. Summer's here, and, I'd like to say we, have nothing planned, but I have to go check the calendar now. So there's probably something I need to do. So, until next time, Jeff.
Until next time, Chris.
Nasty.